the
So,
lead. Then I'm ready
yes.
whenever you are. Go right, get right into it.
Okay, awesome. So my first question for you is, I know that you were once agnostic.
Yes.
Now you wear a cross. That's something that we have in common. So what made that switch?
It's a great question. So it is 2000. So first of all, I'm in the military, and when I'm in the military, it's September of 1997. I was the kid in Iran that my parents would force me to go to Christian school, Sunday school,
Mhm.
and I would sit there and I would say, "Listen, if God exists, why did we get bombed? You know, if God exists, why did that kid die? If God exists, why would He let war happen?" So finally, my Sunday school teacher told my parents, "Can we just not have your son join us?" So at 7, 8 years old, I was kicked out of Sunday school
Wow.
in Iran from an Assyrian Sunday school. So she was just kind of like, Pat's a little bit too constantly wants to debate and, ask us these questions. And we're just trying to teach the kids the basics of Christianity. So I became an atheist. I said, there's no way. Thank you. I became an atheist. I said, there's no way in the world God exists and wars happen. All this stuff happens. So I go to Germany. From Germany, I had a bad experience with a Catholic priest who was taking advantage of one of the local wives who was, I'm just like, I just didn't like that
Wow.
incident that took place with him. And it stuck with me. And then we came to the States. I'm like, guys, I'm an atheist. Don't talk to me about God. Don't talk about all this stuff. I'm atheist. Sometimes I'm agnostic, but that's kind of where I'm at. So then I go in the army. I'm in the army. I'm in boot camp. I score a high test. So I get a call, and my drill sergeant says, five of you guys, whatever the number was, three or five of you guys scored high on your PT exam, that you get to go to a camp. The only thing about this camp is every night for 1 hour, the pastor wants to talk to you. Like, okay, whatever. So we go and we're jumping off into the lake and we're fooling around, doing whatever, we're playing billiards. But at the end of the night, open up your Bibles. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just totally miserable. So by the end of it, it was a 74-year-old man. He says, Patrick, can I give you something? I said, yeah, sure. He says, I want to give you the Bible that was given to me as a gift. I said, come on, you need this more than I do. He says, no, I want to give this to you. I think you need it more than I do. I said, really? He says, he opens it up. He says, my parents gave this to me. The date, December 24th,
Wow.
day before Christmas, 1974. And he says, I really think you need to read this because it changed my life. I think, because I was like all over the place. And, anyways,
Hmm.
so he gave it to me. I'm like, what was this all about? Like, I don't need the Bible. Like, you don't know my story of God. So I came back, and from that time till today, I went every day praying 3 times a day. And this was my prayer. This is how
Wow.
my prayer
Even
went.
today?
This is how my prayer sounds at that time. God, I don't believe you exist. I think it's
Wow.
for weak people. Okay. And I think it's a fairy tale. You're not out there. But if you're out there, let's see if you can hear my prayers. If not, then I'm comfortable talking to myself because it feels good anyways. So how you doing? So let me tell you what my day was like. And I just go, that's my prayer. Like
Wow.
there's not like, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot, no, just a basic prayer, right? So then I'm going about my life. And then in 2002, 2001, I meet a friend of mine who years ago, he was a guy that took PCP and really like a tough guy and, would never believe in God. Starts talking about God. I'm like, you're not a Christian. Because I'm a Christian. There's no way in the world. He said,
Mhm.
can you come to Bible study with me? So I went to a Bible study with him one time and in Pasadena. And I'm like, what is this all about? Anyways, fast forward, January 20th, 2004, I finally ended up giving my life and up. And from there on till today, I've had the craziest life. And I'm probably one of the least qualified people to be a Christian. My resume is not the most impressive resume, but my life changed the moment he entered into my life, and I accepted him in a big way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know that it usually doesn't happen, from one day to another, like without a process. That's why I was kind of curious about that. Uh, but, I know that I read the book, Your Next Five Moves, amazing book, by the way. And I know that one of the things that you mentioned in that book is that it's kind of like a strength to constantly be paranoid. Like paranoia is a strength. And I don't think that a lot of entrepreneurs understand that, especially the ones that, let's say they're already making 300,000, half a million, they kind of get complacent. Let's say they break that threshold and make 10 million, they get really complacent. So why is staying paranoid a strength as an entrepreneur, founder, CEO, in your opinion?
There is a level to paranoia. Let me explain. Like, so imagine schizo here, right?
Right.
Schizophrenia, where you feel like everyone's after you, and it's like, the beautiful mind, where it's like, oh my gosh, So if you're there, you're just not going to be able to enjoy life. Okay, you're just not going to be able to enjoy your day, your life, your time with your family, your kids. You're always going to think your husband is doing something, your wife is doing something, people are after you. So let's just say that's 9. Okay,
Mhm.
paranoia, healthy for business, 5 to 6. Okay. Now, why 5 to 6? Andy Grove, who in the 70s and 80s was like the guy everybody admired, 70s and 80s.
Never even heard of him.
Andy Grove was the CEO of Intel. So
Okay.
just so you know, have you ever read the book? I'll give you all these names. Trillion Dollar Coach. You ever read the book
No.
Trillion Dollar Coach? It's
He
a
wrote
must.
it?
No, they wrote it about a guy named Bill Campbell, and all of those guys come from the era of Andy Grove. You ever read Measure What Matters?
No.
Measure What Matters. It's another must read. Is Measure, like
It's
he's the
funny because one of the questions in my LinkedIn network, I have almost 1 million followers on LinkedIn, and they all wanted to know, like, what are your favorite books? So
oh
I guess you're
Measure.
answering.
I mean, if you want to go to the so some of the hardest numbers to get to is $1 million net income and top line revenue 10 million. So it's tiers. Million, 10 million is hard. Then you got 100 million. But 10 million is much harder than 100 million. I know it sounds weird. Getting to 10 million is a much tougher task than getting to 100 million. So going back to it, Andy Grove wrote a book back in the days. The title was Only the Paranoid Survive. Okay.
Okay.
Only the paranoid survive in the world of business. So now think about some of the characters I'm going to give you. Okay. Steve Jobs, paranoid. Bill Gates, paranoid. Elon Musk, paranoid. Jeff Bezos, paranoid. Uh, you know, generals you talk about, paranoid. Napoleon, paranoid. Patton, paranoid. You can go through so
Wow.
many of these names that we talk about where it's always like, well, what's going to happen here? You go in the sports world, same thing. Parents, you need a little bit of paranoia when you're raising your kids, a little bit. Like, you can't
Yeah,
just be like,
for
hey,
sure.
Dad, I'm gonna go and stay at the weekend at the Joneses' house. Okay, son, I'll see you. Okay, baby, you'll see. No. So
Yeah.
for me, when I was 26 years old and I started thinking about my dreams, like writing out what things I want, you know why it's one of the reasons why I wanted people say, why do you want such a big house? Why such a big house? I said, I want such a big house. I want bowling, movies,
Wow.
backyard, park, pool, ocean, intercoastal. Do you know why? Why? Because I want the slumber parties to always be in my house. I want
Smart.
all I want all my kids' friends, because I'm paranoid. I want
Mhm.
all my kids' friends in my house.
Yeah,
Hey,
because you don't know what they're gonna do if they're at the
exactly,
other person's house.
exactly. Hey, we're going to the Bed Davids. Come on down. Hey, we're gonna go to the pool house. Come on down. Hey, we're gonna go to the beach. Come on down. Everything is come on down, but come on down, like come to us, right? So a level of healthy paranoia you gotta have. If you don't have it, you'll eventually learn about it. And what I mean by learn about it, it's like, oh, if you're too open and friendly about everything that you do with all your strategies and everything, no problem. You'll learn very, very quickly. You can't reveal everything. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're too open about everything with your partner's, sexual life with the wrong person, you're about to learn the wrong way. Like when you're younger, you're like, oh, let me tell you what we did last night, and let me tell you, and next thing
Right.
somebody else is doing the same experiment with her. Oh, let me tell you, my boyfriend is so, and I'll go, oh, okay, really? I'm really now curious. So there's certain things in life that you'll learn that you have to be a little bit, tapered, a little bit measured, a little bit more calculating, especially as you get bigger and more public. That's
Yeah.
the one thing most people don't think about a lot. So there's levels to it. At 6 figures, probably not. At a million, you need to. Million to 10 million, no question about it. You need to be ready for that.
Wow. So I heard a story. I don't know where it was. I think it was like in one of your videos or podcast where you talked about how you connected with like a mentor who eventually you seized an opportunity to go to prison for the day with him to visit his son. Then he opened up his email list. And I love that story because people are always looking for mentors or coaches, but they're always like expecting like it to happen quickly, like for an opportunity like that to happen quickly. And what I gathered from that story was like you not only showed up to every meeting that he said, but like you would always leave a book with him. Uh, so you were providing value, and then when you got your first chance to, you were there for him. So could you share that story, because I think
Yeah.
so many people it will help them.
Yeah, so I'll give you two names. One of them is the one you just shared about, is a guy named Eli, who years ago I met him at a hotel by LAX. He was giving a talk, All-Star Entrepreneurs, I think it was called, or All-Star something. And to participate in this program was $16,000, $21,000, which at the time was a lot of money. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what's going on. And 16 people signed up afterwards. I said, I just want to get close to this guy. I have no desire to do what he was doing, but I want to get close to him. And I, got an invitation on his birthday, 50th birthday party. And I went to Agora Hills and I drove up all these nice cars parked outside. And I went inside and I'm trying to meet everybody. And I'm saying, who's this attorney? Who's that? And then eventually at night, while everybody was leaving, I started doing the dishes and I'm just listening to everybody's conversation. I'm maybe 22 years old, 23 years old. And then long story short, I said, so how can I help you? He said, my son's in prison. Nobody wants to go visit him. Are you willing to go visit him? I said, no problem. I will do that. He says, you will do that? I said, I will do that. So well, there's a process. You got to go through background, social, all this. I said, no problem. So I gave it to him. 4 weeks later, I got approved. So I went to the U.S. Men's Colony. I went and visited his son, who just really enjoyed being with him all day. He was sitting next to me saying, that guy right there shanked one guy and he did this. That guy right there is here for this many. That guy right there. And he was like sitting in the corner watching everybody. And we went through it and we became pen pals and we're writing letters. So I come back. I forget about it. And he says, do you realize you were the only person that went and visited him? I couldn't get his own family to go visit him. You were one of the only people that went, and his own family wouldn't go visit him. I'm like, well, the least I could do, you welcome me in your house. You just met me and you're giving me all this feedback. I'm all in. He says, I want to give back to you because you've done something to me that's very, very important. I said, anything, I'm grateful for it. He opens up his inventory of phone numbers, gives me 600 numbers. I start calling all these 600 numbers, says you can use my name. So I call him up. Eventually I meet a few contacts that eventually, after all the contacts, end up meeting a guy named George Palaio, who's one of the co-founders of the company now. And one contact probably made me anywhere between 30 to 40 million dollars. This one contact.
Wow, that's amazing.
I'll give you another one. The other one is a man named Dudley, Pastor Dudley Rutherford. I think he runs the biggest church in LA. And, when I was going through the phase of studying all these different denominations, I was going to Scientology, LDS, Jehovah, Judaism. I was studying everything. I was just reading and feeding myself anything and everything I can find. And that lasted for like a year and a half. And then eventually I found him and I'm like, I like this guy's style. So I sat all the way in the back of the church and I kept getting closer to see what he said. I'm like, very, very interesting. 6 months later, I wrote him a letter, 2004, could have been 5. I wrote him in a letter and I said, you don't know who I am. I'm a new member. I've been here for maybe a year and I'm going to do something very big in my life. And I don't have a way of giving you anything today, but I will bring value to you. I'd love to go out to lunch with you and treat you to lunch. 6 months later, he responds back, says, meet me at Black Angus, such and such time. Okay, great. So I go, we sit down, we talk, and he's learning about me. And long story short, every time I'm like, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? What can I? So every year, yesterday, it's so funny. He sends me a picture yesterday. I am famous for running out of gas. I'm famous for running out of gas. Like if you know me, literally. So he writes a book called God Has an App for That. In the book, he tells my story. This is me running out of gas, yellow Corvette. And in his book, that's me calling AAA when I ran out of gas on 210
How many times have you run out of gas?
I've probably, no joke, I probably ran out of gas 70 times in my.
Oh my God.
That's probably a low number. 70 times I've run out of gas. And so he writes about it in his book. And it gets published. And so if you read his book, you're like, this guy ran out of gas. The day I was taking him to the Laker game when they're playing the Celtics, game 7, where the Lakers won the championship, and we run out of gas. So moral of the story is, I asked him, I said, where do you want me to take you? Every year you get 2 trips. You tell me where you want to go, I take you. So I took him to Pebble Beach. I took him to Game. I took him anywhere he wanted. It's on me, right? Mm-hmm. Eventually, he gave me 2 referrals. Never once did I ask him for a referral. Never once did I say, can I sell your insurance policy? Never once did I try to sell him an annuity. Never once, right? So eventually he said, I want to introduce you to 2 people. One of them is a guy named Tom Ellsworth, who became my president, who's now my chief
strategy officer. Oh my God. Just from a letter?
just from that one relationship. And the other contact he introduced me was Matt Sapala.
Yeah, I've interviewed Matt Sapala.
Have you?
Yeah, he's been on the
Matt,
podcast.
yeah, so Matt was introduced to me by Pastor Dudley Rutherford. Matt came on board in 2015 with our company with his wife Sheena. Fast forward today, they're the top earners. He's now the chief distribution officer, and his wife is the chairman of the board for the field advisory board. And these are two contacts, both came from the same person.
Wow.
Who I went in and I just said, "How can I help you?" I think a lot of times we all want to, kind of, hey, can I give me for this? Can you give me this? You take the approach of how can I help you with no expectation in return. And then eventually, if you treat people properly and accordingly, eventually the floodgates will open for you.
Yeah, I love that. And I know your time is pressed, Patrick. So I just have two more questions. What 5 books or 3 books could you recommend other than the ones that you mentioned, just for people to break a million for the first time? Probably the first self-made millionaires in their family.
I would say, so it'll be 2 things. So one would be mental and the other one would be how to, so identity and logic, right? So logic, I already gave you, measure what matters, $1 Trillion Coach. I would probably on the logic side add No Rules by Reed Hastings about Netflix.
Okay.
I would add those 3 there. And on the identity side, I would probably add Psycho-Cybernetics. Psycho-Cybernetics I would put on that list. And probably Laws of Success. Not Think and Grow Rich. For me, it's Laws of Success by Napoleon Hill. Those would be the 5 books.
Have you ever read the Ellipsis Manual?
The which one?
The Ellipsis Manual?
I have not.
You should read it. I'm gonna send it to you. It's by a guy named Chase Hughes, and basically he was I think it was in the CIA, but it's basically some tips on how to communicate effectively to people and how to interact with people, kind of like NLP on steroids. And I think that you would, yeah, that one. I think that you would love it. If you don't buy it before I buy it for you, I'm still gonna send it to you. But you would love it. Okay. And I think that once you read it, like your leaders should read it too, because it would help them.
I will definitely look it up.
Yeah. So last question. I know that you usually ask people their birthdays. Why is that?
Okay. So I just had I just had a guy on this week who's a zodiac expert.
Really?
For years he's been doing astrology. Yeah. If you go look him up on YouTube, Ray Couture's got 14 million views, where Cut YouTube channel comes and brings a room of 15 people. And just by talking to them, he says what sign they are. He has to guess their sign. Very interesting. Really? So I bring him on board and we talk, and he just psychoanalyzes me and says, "You're this as a Libra, and you have a little bit of Leo, and you have a little bit of Virgo, and you have a little bit of all this stuff he's saying to me." But for me, I study trends. And to me, it's all about trends. And I'm very out of control curious. I can't even help myself how curious I am. So I want to know when I match. It's to the point where I had this is pretty embarrassing, but I had my CFO and my accountants pull up all my top earners in the company to find out which sign makes the most money in the company.
Which one?
Cancer and Pisces were making the most money in the company. So I pulled it up to just kind of get a feel for it. And you know what was the lowest earners in the company? Libras. I'm a Libra. So kind of like, wait a minute. So how does this make any sense where, I'm a Libra, but, I hire Libras who have to deal with people. I hire Aprils that have to do with systems, because when they say they're going to do something, they'll deliver. I trust March with money. I trust Cancer and June, July with systems and organization, and but to me, it's all about trends, connecting the dots. This person, they have so many things in common. Why is that? So it's not 100%, but there's 50-60% credibility behind it.
That's interesting. I'm a Gemini, May 25th.
So do you know who else is a Gemini?
I know the celebrities, like a couple of them, no, not relevant to you.
Who do you know celebrities? Who do you know
Angelina Jolie, yeah. I know Gemini. Biggie, Tupac, all of them. Those are like the biggest ones I know.
Biggie, Tupac, John F.
Donald
Kennedy,
Trump.
Marilyn Monroe, Donald Trump, John F. Kennedy, Brad Pitt.
Wow.
Uh, Let me tell you, Gemini is like a ton. My daughter's a Gemini.
Oh, really?
Geminis are non-stop creative and a little bit challenging because they're gonna get what they want, but wired in a different way.
Oh, that's funny. Well, that's it because I know you have to go. But